Hi, I'm Pritee Varsani. I'm a Gujarati folk singer in the UK, and I'm born and raised in northwest London. So my dad was born in Mombasa in Kenya, and my mum was born in Kutch, Gujarat. And after my dad was born in Mombasa, he travelled to Kutch, and they came to the UK in the 70s, and yeah, they travelled with my grandparents and all his brothers and sisters. They all travelled together, and they made a life in the UK. So as far as I remember, when my dad used to actually tell me that they used to travel quite a lot by boat. So them going from Kenya to India, they actually travelled by boat, and they had a bit of a struggle in Kutch. And when they decided to come to the UK to make a life for themselves, again, being in the UK, being the first generation in the UK, it was very difficult for them to fit in because they didn't have a community here. Where being in India, where you've got your own people, and then coming to the UK and facing racism, facing a lot of different things as well, and starting a complete different life, it was very different for them. However, it took a bit of a toll in their lives, but they adapted. From what I remember is when they came to the UK and trying to, of course, hold on to the language, hold on to the culture, they tried to pass that on to us growing up. And I just remember growing up using, speaking the language as well, where it was mixed with Swahili and Gujarati, and me growing up here with my, of course, siblings as well, we actually thought that that was the normal Gujarati, and speaking that language to our grandparents and our relatives as well, we actually grew up feeling that that is actually Gujarati. And it was only up until I did my own travels and went to India and understood that the language I'm speaking is completely different, and knowing that okay, we've just adopted some words from Swahili and, of course, the Kutchi Gujarati as well. It felt like we had to learn I had to learn a complete different language, which was a struggle on that side, but it was a fun process. Going back to the parents' struggle, I remember my dad talking about him going to India, of course traveling by boat, but going to Kutch and making a life for himself, because it was a complete different lifestyle for him as well, going into a different country as well. Being an ice cream boy, traveling around selling ice cream, and I remember him talking about that. He was also a very mischievous person. Because growing up in Africa as well, they used to do all these things of climbing up trees and, doing all these silly things. And I remember him telling me that, we used to climb up trees and we used to, hassle the teachers and so on. But I guess they've all had, some kind of stories to tell. But as mentioned before, when they came to the UK, it was a struggle for them. Again, coming back down to the racism that they faced here in the UK, and just being able to adapt to a complete new culture and a new lifestyle, and being around friends and family who have also or were going through exactly the same thing, because it's not just that my family went through this whole migration period. They were in a community where others were also going through the same thing as well.
What about yourself? You grew up in Kensal Rise, and whilst you were growing up, did you feel racism in Britain?
I personally myself didn't feel racism, because I felt like that moment had passed during when my brother were born. I was born in the 80s, so for me it was a lot more diluted by that time. But yes, my dad had faced the racism with, the skinheads, for example, and so did my sister. But they had travelled on, and it didn't. I've never been exposed to racism on that front.
I want to ask you, just want to dissect a little bit about, you said you go to India, obviously to meet friends, a family, and but was there a burning desire in yourself to understand your roots and what India is all about?
So for me, when I wanted to tap into the Gujarati music scene, for me it was like I need to first understand my culture and my language and my people, because I can't go into something where I'm completely clueless. So that's when I decided that if I go, I want to go to a space where I'm able to dig deeper into my roots. So first, of course, I went to Kutch. I wasn't getting my answers from Kutch because it felt like everyone had moved on. So if I wanted to go back into where we have started, it felt like people had all forgotten. So then I went into a different part of Gujarat, and I stayed with my music teacher, and through her and connecting with the villages around in the surrounding areas, I got to understand my language, my culture, my people, and going even deeper into just learning and understanding the spiritual leaders of Gujarat, and why they said what they said, why they did what they did. It made me feel more interested to learn more and more about our culture, because being born and brought up in the UK was, first of all, the language. It wasn't something it wasn't my first language to be speaking, like in terms of, yes, I was speaking Gujarati, with my grandparents and my relatives, but it was a mixture of Gujarati, Swahili, Kutchi, English, everything together, where I actually thought was the Gujarati language. I thought I knew about my culture. I thought I knew about my background being here in the UK. But when I got to travel to Gujarat, I actually got to see a complete different side. And that's when I thought, okay, this is difficult, but I'm going to have to do this because I want to do this and I want to learn about my culture. I want to learn my language. So that's when I sat there, learned the alphabets from scratch, started reading the newspaper, and I feel like now I'm proud to say that I'm actually one of the best speaking Gujarati person in my family.
When you were in India, did people identify you as a foreigner, or did they take you in as one of them?
In the beginning, people saw me as, oh, she's come from outside, she's a foreigner, we need to treat her very differently. But my first trip to Gujarat, I was supposed to be staying there for 3 months. I ended up staying there for 1 year. So people started getting used to me, and I wanted that to happen. So when I went into the villages, my condition was, I don't want to be treated any different. I'm going to come and stay in your village. However, when I come and stay there, I want to live exactly like how you guys live, because I want to understand how you do things. So when I went with that condition, everyone treated me like their own, and that's what connected me to my roots more, and it made me feel like this is my life. This is what I want to understand. Because in the beginning it was very much like, oh no, we need to give her a room with AC, we need to give her, the English toilets and so on and forth. And there was so much, I know we need to make sure she has a table to sit on, when she's having dinner. But they gave me the table whilst everyone around me is sitting on the floor. And it made me feel like, why are you treating me different? I want to sit on the floor with you guys. I want to eat with you guys. I want to sleep like the way you guys are sleeping. If you guys are sleeping on the floor, I want to also sleep on the floor, because I'm here to experience that life. It took time for them to adapt to me, then myself to adapt to them. I was very open from before.
You have another roots in East Africa.
Yeah.
Just earlier you said you were just visiting. What about the roots there? Because your Gujarati, for instance, was influenced with or sprinkled with Swahili.
Yes. So I've traveled to Kenya so many times because my family's there. Since the 80s, I've probably done more trips to Kenya. No, well, actually, I lie. More trips now to India, but you know, I've done so many trips to Africa, and I've seen it grow from the 80s to going there last month, actually, being there in December time. And the way it's evolved, the way the language has evolved, even for me, like when they say certain things, when they're speaking to, you know, the people around them and they use, you know, when they use Swahili words, I connect to them. It's a language that I can be like, I know what you're talking about, because we say that just at home. So I feel like picking up the language, the Swahili language, is a lot more easier for me than going to somewhere like Spain or anywhere else in the world and trying to adapt to a different language. I feel like going to Kenya, it's so much easier. Even if they're speaking to me in Swahili, I feel like I know what they're talking about, and I just feel so connected to that language.
What about the culture there? It's quite different from Gujarat.
I feel like the culture within my friends and family, that has changed a lot. They are very forward thinking now, and the thing is, it's really hard to say, because I'm just having a conversation now without the. I felt really different being around my family there this time, because I felt like they were in a position where they had nothing, not a single penny, before in the 80s, 90s, growing up around them. And, growing up at that time, they had nothing. And now, all of a sudden, they are like the top businessmen there. So it's a complete different lifestyle, where before they would do their own work, you know, when it came to cooking or looking after the kids or cleaning the house, and now they've got like a few maids and they've got cooks and chefs. So I see that as a change as well. Like they're living a lifestyle that it's just completely different. Whereas, and then from that, when I went into the villages, when I went to do my own travels to, I went to climb Kilimanjaro, and I met people, the local community there, and I felt a home feeling from them, more connection with them. I went to Serengeti and I went into the Maasai village, and the connection I felt with the Maasai, the community, was the same feeling I felt when when we went to India and went into the tribal community, and when we did our travels to understand the tribal community, I felt that similar connection there. People that are still in touch with their roots, and that's when I met those people, it took me back to those villages I went to. But when I was around my friends and family, I felt like I've kind of like gone a little ahead, because they are very different they have a very different lifestyle to the people in India and the people in the UK. Not saying it was anything wrong, but it was just very different for me. It's not something I would want to adapt to.
What do you think about the relationship between the different communities there? For instance, the Asian community and the black communities. What is the relationship today?
I don't want to say it in a way where I'm offending as well. Because in conversation I have spoken to Mira that I feel really bad for the Africans in terms of they're never going to be able to have that stand in their own country, because there was a time where the Indians were reliant. I mean, how do I put that? Like the Indians there, from my own family, they're very reliant on these Africans to get by. They can't do anything themselves. That's how I see it. With what with my community of people that I was around when I went to Africa. It's just how to say it without offending. I don't know. I feel like I'll say things in a way where I'll probably offend an Indian. But I feel like this is why there were lots. I mean, there were lots of like gunshots and what do you call it? How do you say jewelry? Crimes and things like that happening before, because that black community felt like they weren't getting the jobs that they should be getting, and it felt like when the Indians went there, they were doing everything, so they were being that servant to the Indians, and they weren't getting what they wanted in terms of salary wise. And so this is from my little conversations that I've had with the few people from the black communities in the past, that because they don't have that, they have to try doing things to reach out to get more for themselves. So looking at it on that side was feeling like, okay, fine. I mean, it's not good that you're doing that. It's not a right thing to do that. But they're doing that because they want to take that stand as well. Whereas currently, being there in the recent times and seeing that, even being told that, Pritee, make sure you look after your stuff, because, don't put your money lying around, or make sure you don't have jewelry lying around, because our servants, their hands aren't clean and so on. But it just makes you think, why aren't their hands clean? That means they're not comfortable with what they're receiving. So are they always going to be servants in their own country? Is this how we're going to treat them, throughout? They're never going to be able to take their own stand. And that's what I was kind of like feeling quite passionate about. And then when I see that even with the people that I know have really evolved in life, and then they still taking advantage of, their servants in that kind of way, just made me feel like my heart goes out to you. Because if the accusation's been put on you, it's just like, we're getting a new servant, that's it. We have to be careful on our front. We have to be careful. So you're already putting it in your head that person's going to do, create some kind of crime within in your home or something like that. Whether that person's come with a clean intention that I'm coming there to, do my job, and that's it. But you've already put it in there that I don't trust you. You're going to come and do something I don't trust to leave my home to you, and that's it. That's that barrier that we've already just put between us, that if we're going to have someone in our home, we have to be careful to just keep anything there. And I feel like that's just there with everyone.
But if your observations, you observed all these things since you are brought up in Britain, so now you are questioning the situation back in Africa about why people, if you were stuck in Mombasa, you probably might have been the same.
That's it. So if I was born and brought up, and if I was raised on that in Kenya, then of course my mindset would be according to what I see there, and it would just be like, okay, this is the norm, this is how it works. However, because I'm born and brought up in the UK, in a different country, and then going back and forth there, and then seeing, because I remember going there in the mid-90s, I remember driving somewhere and our tires, being stuck in a traffic and our tires being stolen, just being stuck in traffic. And, the fact that someone had the nerve to actually just come and just take our tires out was just like, wow, that's so random. Who did that? Who would even think to do that? But yes, that actually happened. But then after that, knowing that someone was held at gunpoint, one of my own family members were held at gunpoint because, they do anything and everything to get money out of you and, something out of you, because that's what they want. Yeah, you experience that, but then you go again and things are different now. There's more jobs out there for people. Nairobi has evolved massively, like from where 10 years ago when I went to when I went a few months ago. It's completely different. Like the bridges that have been created, and you know, the more work opportunities there are. So you feel like it's more safer being out, walking around. You feel that. Yes, you get told that be careful with your phones, be careful with your money, and so on forth. But I went for my walks. I did things, and I felt like, okay, you know what? I'm not. I feel like you're putting, you know, the people from there, you're putting that in my head, because when I'm going out and doing these things, I'm not feeling that fear. I'm not feeling that you know, that I need to look around me. And that's more so because you've allowed these people to go out there and work by giving them more work opportunities. And I don't know if that's from, you know, from China, when now it's literally you know, they've gone there and kind of like started, you know, created these bridges and invested quite a lot in Nairobi now, in Kenya. So I don't know if it's because they've given all these opportunities now, and with the Indians as well, like, you know, creating all these new businesses and so on, that's given them more work, that's keeping them away from creating all these crimes, I guess.
A passionate desire to understand about your roots, and you went to India and stayed there. And did you feel the same with the youngsters in Africa? Did they have, or did they become more cosmopolitan or more westernized?
As in the Indians there?
The Indian, your family or your people you saw around you. Did they have this burning desire to want to learn about India? And
from what I felt when I went to India, going to meeting all these people who had so much passion towards just even wanting to know me and get, you know, wanting to go into, let's just say, the culture with me. I didn't feel that with the younger generation in Africa. I felt that they were very westernized, who themselves, Gujarati wouldn't even be a language for them. To be honest with you, even Swahili is very little for them as well, because English is the main language for them. And that's what they're focusing on. So even when I was trying to speak to, I would say, my nieces and nephews, the few kids that I was around, tried to speak to them in Gujarati, because I'm very passionate about the Gujarati language and keeping it alive. Even when I tried to speak to them, they'll look at me like, what language are you speaking to me? And why are you speaking to me, you know, in Gujarati? Why can't we speak in English? You're from London, so you should speak to me, you know, in English. But it was like, no, you should know this, you know. Yeah, so I felt a big difference with the younger generation from Africa to what I see in India. It's very, very different.
It's funny how migration shapes us, isn't it? All these experiences of migration. Now I want to talk to you about, I'm quite fascinated by your chundra, your tattoos.
Yes.
Very Gujarati, very Kutchi tattoo.
Rajwa, yeah.
And then I'm also a bit intrigued about your hairstyle. So where does your identity, how do you identify yourself as?
So I love the Gujarati folk culture. My tattoo it's Rajwa. It's come from looking at my grandma and the older generation. So of course they all did Rajwa. However, my mum has the dots on her face as well. It means something. Each and every dot actually represents some kind of solar system, some kind of planets, and there's a story behind them. And growing up and seeing, of course, my grandma with the tattoos on her arms, it was very interesting for me, because I've grown up loving tattoos, and of course I've done the whole, you know, let's get the needle and, you know, just with the machine and do tattoos on my body and so on, watching others. But when I did what I've done on my neck was something that just connected me to my grandma and my relatives, and it was just like, I want to do it in the way that they did it, which was hand poked. Because that's the memory I want. So I actually got that done in the UK, and I found a tattooist in London who does it in the traditional way, where she hand pokes, and it took her 6 hours to do what I've done. Very painful, but I'm glad I got it done because I understood what my grandparents went through at that time to get these kind of tattoos done. And I love it. And because I'm an artist, and I like to stand out in different ways. So me creating this kind of hairstyle, or every time I like to do something different, even when it comes to wearing clothing wise and so on. I mean, there's a lot of inspiration, support from Mira. But I like to do things where I feel like, I want to stand out in a different way and just come out of the box. Like, I don't want to be where everyone else is. I want to just be someone different, whether that's my singing style or whether that's my look style. I just want to be able to stand out in what I do. And but whilst I'm standing out in what I do, I'm showing the Gujarati culture. That it's not Gujarati culture, Gujarati music isn't the old thing that you listen to, that the bhajans, and it's that mentality of, Gujarati songs mean garba, Gujarati songs mean bhajans. No, there could be a fun way to go into the whole Gujarati culture, and you can do all these things but bring it in a different way. And I think that's what I'm trying to bring out. So when I do perform in Navratri, I wear pagdi. That it's not just men that can wear pagdi. We can wear pagdi and we can make it look cool. We can just make Gujarati culture look really cool by just incorporating their textiles and their different styles to the Western side of stuff, and see how we can make it work. There's no limits to in terms of, no, this is Gujarati culture. No, how can we experiment with it? And that's what I want to do. I just want to experiment with it as much as I can. So I know that a younger generation will look at it and be like, oh, Gujarati culture is cool. And that's my main thing. I just want it to be a cool culture. We like to experiment with different types of clothing and so on. It's about what feels right and what looks right, and it's just about combining the two together. Because I live in the UK, I am from here, but my heart is, of course, just goes to Gujarat all the time. And I'm from Kutch, and I love the Kutchi culture. I love the textiles. I love everything about not just Kutch, but in Gujarat as a whole, like the kind of, work we have within our clothing and so on, jewelry wise. It's about how to then combine it with, today's, because I can't walk around in London with a Kutchi outfit. Like, that's not something I can do in my day-to-day life. How can I incorporate it into my day-to-day life? And that's just what we like to do. So if it's like, if I can wear a bandhani scarf, for example, I will do that. If I can, go find ajrak material and turn that into a shirt, or add patches to my jeans, then how am I incorporating it into my clothing where I'm still connecting with my roots and still connecting with my, that style that I want to adapt, and just bring it into the Western side of me, and just making it look more cool.
What triggered all your passion to go back home and finding the roots and the true roots?
My journey has been very different, actually. I've been born and brought up here in the UK. I've not been exposed as much to our culture. It was only through my community events and the temple. So I would do my weekly trips to the mandir, and we'll have our annual community event, and that's what I would go to, where I would dance and so on. But to learn about our culture and so on, I feel like because my parents themselves, when they came into the country, they needed to work to get by. So we didn't get to sit down and even understand about the roots of the culture. You'd get a few things from the grandparents, but it was a lot of religious stories, this is the Ramayana, this is the Mahabharata, and so on forth. So that's what I would learn more about. And it was just when actually later on in my life, I would say, somebody noticed somebody actually pointed out to me that, you know what, Pritee, you actually have a good voice, you should do something with it. Where I never knew, because my parents never actually thought to send me to anything when it comes to arts or, you know, music or dance or anything. For them, it was just like academics, you know, school, and that's it. They were never exposed to it themselves, so they never thought that let me send you to, you know, to a music school or anything like that. And my parents don't come from we don't have any musical background, you know, so they wouldn't think of it, and I didn't think of it either. And I think it was just when I turned 18 or 19 when somebody from work said to me, Pritee, you have a good voice, you should maybe just go for a voice check or something like that in the studios. And through connections, I did. I went to a studio, and at that time my Gujarati wasn't great. So it wasn't that I wanted to take the Gujarati route. I was more into the Bollywood side of the stuff. So it was Bollywood music and Bollywood, you know, the songs. That's what I wanted to take forward. So I thought, okay, fine. And when I went to the studio and I did a vocal check, the guy there actually said to me, "You got a very good voice and you can go forward in this." And again, at that time, I had no idea how things work because I didn't even know the sa of music. And then for me at that time was like, no, I want to go to India, and I think I should at least go and learn the basics of music or basics of what I'm trying to get into here all of a sudden. And that's when I went to Mumbai, thinking I'm going to go into the Bollywood side of stuff. It was only up until when I went there and through a big celebrity, Falguni Pathak, she heard me sing in a bhajan. She did a bhajan performance and she called me up on stage through a friend of mine, and asked me to sing with her. And at that time, because she was singing bhajans and I couldn't sing bhajans because that wasn't the route I was taking, and I said to her that I don't know if I'm going to sing it correctly because I don't even know these words. And she said to me, I'm going to sing a dhun. You just follow me because I've called you up on stage now. You just follow me and just sing. So I said, okay, fine. And I did that. She sang a dhun and I sang after her. And then she said to me, after I finished, she said, just make sure you just wait after the show. I want to speak to you. And of course I was like panicking, thinking, oh my God, Falguni Pathak wants to talk to me. I wonder what she's going to say to me. And I was actually panicking. So after the show, I spoke to her and she said to me, what's your plans? What do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a Bollywood singer, you know. And she was like, no, I don't think you should take that route. What I feel is what we're losing is the Gujarati culture, the Gujarati music. If everyone wants to go into Bollywood, there's so many kids that are just rising to go into Bollywood. Everyone wants to get into that. But who wants to do Gujarati? If we don't take that stand from now, then we're going to lose our Gujarati culture. We're going to lose our Gujarati music. We need people to do that. When she said that to me, I thought, you know what? I know nothing about Gujarati music. I know nothing. Don't even know the language properly. I'm going to go and do this. And that's when I went to Rajkot, and my music teacher Lalita Ben Goradra, my dad, of course, knew her because he went to her bhajans and so on. So through that connection, I went to her house and I was, of course, speaking to her in my Gujarati that I thought was the correct Gujarati, which was a Gujarati, Kutchi, Swahili, bit of English. And she was looking at me like, I don't know what language you're speaking to me in. And I actually felt like, oh my goodness, so all my life I've been speaking a language that is incorrect, that is what we would call khichdi. That's what I've done. I've made a khichdi of a language and I'm trying to speak that language to a person who actually knows Gujarati. And she said, no, we're going to do everything from the start now. And that's when she wrote Ka Kha Ga, the Gujarati alphabets for me. And then she gave me newspapers. She said, now you're going to start reading these newspapers and you're going to start learning the language. And that's when I started learning the language. I started going into, because she's a bhajan Santvani artist. Her shows used to start from 10 p.m, go on till 7 a.m. in the morning. pretty much every night. And if she's not performing at night, she would go into recording studios in the daytime. So because I was living with her, she asked me to go with her to these performances and go to the studio, which I was happy to do. Wasn't really happy to go into the bhajans because I could not stand the sound of the manjiras. For me, it was too loud by the ears. It was piercing my ears. That's how I felt at that time. And so I went, and I was there. Literally, you can see me still. Currently, you'll see those random YouTube videos where I'm sitting behind her and I'm falling asleep in the back. But I still sat through those bhajans, not interested as much, not understanding what's going on here. But I still went, and I was like, okay, I try understanding how she's sitting, how she's performing, how she's doing, how they're combining as a group, musicians and so on. So I started doing all of that, started looking at it in a different way. It was only up until she asked me to go to Junagadh for the Shivratri Numero. And I was told by other artists, like, Pritee, you don't want to go there because all you're going to hear is Santwari bhajans, like dairos, that's happening there. And there's too many people, and I don't know if you don't want to be around there. So everybody was putting me off. That's like the worst place to, go for me, not for them, but for me. I tried to talk to my music teacher, and I tried to get myself out of that. And she was like, no, you're going to come to it, and you're going to experience the Shivratri Mero, and you're going to experience that side. So I was like, okay, fine, you know what? I can't argue with her now. I'm going to have to go. And the first day I got there, as soon as I got there, it was 5 days. The moment I got there, my slippers broke. So 5 days, I had to walk around with no slippers. And the first 4 days, it was really irritating for me. I was getting really agitated because there were so many people, and people were just, hitting into you and so on. And it was getting me really frustrated. It's like, why? There's so much space around you. Why do they have to brush past you? And that's what kept happening. And so I was getting irritated. And it was only on the last night, on the Shivratri, on actual Shivratri, I kid you not, I don't know what happened. The manjira sound that was so irritating for me became so sweet. All of a sudden, I was like, oh my gosh, like, you sound so sweet all of a sudden. And the bhajans that I could not understand became like I could connect to it. And it was like a transformation that was happening. And I don't know what that was. And I still, till date, I still can't put like what happened to me on that day. But that's what I wanted to get into. It's like, no, I want to do bhajans. I want to do Santwani. This is my culture. This is my roots. This is what's making me feel like this is my home, and I just want to do that. And coming back here, singing those songs, yes, that older generation will connect to them, but the next generation, how am I going to get them to connect to them? That was my challenge, because like what I did, I went out to India and stayed there. The first year I stayed there for 1 year. Like that, I've been staying there for 8 to 10 years. I did that, but another person isn't going to be able to do that. But how can I bring that here in a way where it looks cool and it looks fun, and that I want to know about my culture? I had to try adapting that lifestyle to this lifestyle. I'm bringing it both together, and that's what was the challenge for me. But it was a fun challenge, and in that challenge it's been like, no, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to make it fun, and this is how we're going to get the kids involved and the younger generation and anyone involved. And that's what it was for us, to just make it cool.
Tell me, how is this challenge manifesting now? Do you find people are attracted to your work and connecting with what you are trying to portray to them?
Maybe you should first explain what she is doing nowadays.
Yeah.
I feel from where we started, when it came to, because I used to perform for Garba, in different places, and I was always told, Pritee, you need to sing Bollywood songs to get the community engaged. And I was really against that, because it was like, it's Navratri. Why do we have to sing Bollywood songs during Navratri? Why is it that those 9 days in a year we can't respect Ma and just sing for Ma? you know, we should do that because that's her time. We can listen to Bollywood any time of the day. I've got nothing against Bollywood. I listen to Bollywood most of the times anyway. But for those 9 nights, why can't we just dedicate and devote that time to Ma? So it used to really frustrate me when I used to go and perform in different communities and they used to tell me that's the only way we will be able to engage with the crowd is by singing Bollywood songs. However, because I was against it, I never did perform Bollywood songs. Yes, my co-singers would perform Bollywood songs, but I would refuse to do that. For me, it was just traditional. And it was only up until when, in 2013, when my cousin said to me, how would you want to do it? What's your goal? How do you want to do? Where do you see yourself, basically, with the Gujarati culture and so on? And I said to him, when it comes to Navratri, I want to sing the garbas that we are supposed to be singing. I want to perform what we're supposed to be performing and not feeling that we need to piggy bank off Bollywood to get a community to come together. And he said, okay, you tell me what you want and I'll be there to support you. And that's when it was, yes, it was our first year of Navratri. It was a struggle for us because we organized our own Navratri the way I wanted to do it, to bring in a group from India because I wanted that traditional feel, the traditional connection. So it was like, okay, let me try that and see how it portrays. And the thing about the way we work is when we get booked out as artists, it's like, okay, fine, we're going to do what you want us to do. But when are we going to be able to do what we want to do? And that's when we created Red Lotus Events. And it was like, no, this is where we're going to show what we want to do. And you come to our performance and see how we portray our culture. Of course, in the beginning, we felt like, okay, the crowd were a lot more elderly at that time, just elderly in the beginning. Sometimes like Navratri, going back to that, we started off with only 30 people in the audience. But we didn't lose hope from that because we know, like, we did that, even though people were telling us, okay, don't do it because clearly it's not going to work. Maybe we do need to do Bollywood. Maybe that is the way to get the crowd in. No, it's because people don't know about it. And we just need to just keep putting it out there that this is what we're doing. And we just need to make sure people feel that it's actually cool, it's actually fun to, hear our music and hear these traditional Gujarati songs. So we didn't come away from what we wanted to start off with. We're still doing that. From 2013, where we first started Garba, to 2024, last year, Garba, we're still doing the same songs. We haven't changed. We have not added any Bollywood influence. We've not added nothing to it. If anything, our audience have grown. They've become more younger. They would say it themselves. Oh, that Prachin song that you've been singing this whole time. Why don't you sing it this Garba? Can you sing it on the... I'll get text messages from my cousin sister. Make sure you sing that old, Gujarati Garbo song today and so on. Which makes me feel proud because that's the girl who goes to clubs and who goes out partying and who goes to her Bollywood nights and who has that lifestyle. But when she comes to Garba, she wants to listen to that traditional Garbo. And that's what makes me feel like, yes, thank you. We're doing something right.
Do you have any future plans about how you can make this stick out to the next generation?
I think Mira would be better at explaining this, but I will say whatever I can. So we're doing kids mentorships and we're doing other events, like we've given a platform like Rangilu Gujarat. And that's primarily for the next generation to feel that it's okay to be Gujarati. We have all of these things. And for us as well, it's also a learning thing for us as well, because the more we're doing these kind of events, we're digging more deeper into our culture for us to actually pass on. And when it comes to the kids' mentorship, going on to that, we've all grown up kind of like going into gathas and, going to mandirs and volunteering and being a part of the community in that way. And that's what gave us our space of knowing about our culture and knowing about the little that we could for those 7 or 9 days of Qatar. You know, we go there and volunteer, and we got to be a part of our community. And that made us feel like, okay, that brought us closer to our culture. However, that was it. So we want to create that space where we want to offer that same thing back to the younger generation, where you come and, you know, you'll be mentored by the correct people in the departments. And if you want to be security, then you'd get the support from the security team. If you want to be a singer, you'd get support from the singing, you know, from the singers and the musicians and so on forth. There's a wide community that can support the next generation. And we want to do that, to pass that on, because they are the future and they are the ones that are going to take this forward. So even by doing Rangilu Gujarat and so on, it's for our satisfaction as well, but it's also for the next generation to feel like, wow, this is our culture, this is our people, and this is something we want to just take forward.
A question like, where do you really come from? Was it ever asked, this question?
Sometimes I don't know where I belong. I love the fact that I'm British and I've adapted a very diverse culture here. But I also love that I've picked up so much of the Gujarati culture and I've introduced that to myself. And being born and brought up here, how I've adapted the two cultures together, I love that. Because I can go to India, I can go to anywhere in the world. The moment I come back to the UK, I feel like I'm home. And that's because there's so much to learn here in the UK from different people. And we work a lot with, like just recently we worked with an African culture for one of the shows that we just did a month ago. But learning their style and their music and their everything about them, and then adapting the Gujarati culture to that, but not just the Gujarati, but then the Western side to that and the Punjabi side to that. There was so many different elements that we brought together, but we were only able to do that by being open within ourselves. That, no, I'm not just a Gujarati, I'm not just a British, I'm very open to adapt to everything. So yeah.
You know, this country has also a colonial past, and actually why your parents, grandparents had to move around was related to the colonial empire. Does it bother you, or what is your take on that?
I personally think it doesn't bother me. Because for me, it's very different now. For what they went, my parents didn't go through those kind of challenges what the others went through in Uganda. So from hearing my parents' migration story, I feel like it hasn't affected them for it to affect me.
What do your parents think of you now that you are digging into becoming a folk singer, and you said you were never exposed, you never were sent to music class or whatever.
And also in relation to the academic thingy, what they wanted to teach you.
So my dad passed away, of course, 15 years ago. But when both of them, both my parents, when I told them I want to do music, it wasn't something that they thought was a thing. They thought music is a side hobby. We don't have anything to do with music within the family. Like, how are you going to get by? Because I think for them was like, no, the normal thing is becoming a doctor or becoming a lawyer or an accountant or working in a bank and so on. And I think that's what my mum's dreams were for me. Whereas my dad was very chilled. It was very much like, it doesn't matter, you'll still be my favorite. You can do whatever you want in life, but I won't love you any less. And when I told my dad that I do want to go and sing in India, yes, for him, there was, of course, that side, that one concern that how am I going to live without you, knowing that I'm going to come home and not have you in the house. That was one thing that was his, no, I don't think you should go. But then he also felt like, no, you know, you've just found something that you want to explore. My support is there. So you go and do what you feel is right. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Not in those words, because he wasn't very vocal on how he felt, but looking into it, I know this is how he was trying to push me into it. And my mum, at that time, she didn't really have much of a voice. What my dad said is what mattered. So she didn't really have much to say. And when I did go there and do what I went, did what I went to do, and when I came back with my first album, which was released by T-Series, of course my dad was that proud dad who went everywhere, because he was a plumber by profession, and whenever he would go and do plumbing at someone's house, he would take my CD there and be like, oh, look, this is my daughter, I've only got one CD here, but we'll have to watch that, we'll watch it together. And then he'll make every household that he goes to watch that one CD, and then he'll end up leaving it there. But really, in his van, he would have a box of my CDs. But he'll tell everyone that he's only got one CD, so that he makes sure that he sits there with them watching my whole album. But that was just him being so proud. He would never tell me, but he was my biggest supporter, and he pushed me so much out there in the community, telling everyone that, oh, my daughter sings, my daughter sings. So if my mum before used to feel like, no, you still need to this is not a job, you still need to go into something. But after Dad passed away, I feel like she relaxed more, and she was like, you know what, just do what you're doing. Because I think when she started seeing that I was doing my own events and I started organizing these things, and for her, it felt like when people were telling her that, wow, your daughter's done something really amazing here, and this, when she used to hear about it outside, that used to make her feel like, oh, people are talking about her in a very positive way. And when I was doing performances, and when I would perform on stage, and people would come to her and be like, oh, your daughter, if they would say something like compliment me or anything, it made her feel proud that, okay, you know what, she's doing the right thing, she's done the right thing. So yeah, so that had to change, that had to turn. But I think for them, they had to find that, because they never knew about it. She never knew that these kind of things exist. So it was something that she needed to learn in her time and feel like, okay, well, maybe this is a career, and maybe this is a job, and maybe there is a life here. And it's not just the 9 to 5, going into an office and doing accounts and so on. Maybe there is a different lifestyle as well. But she had to understand that through my journey. And I think now she's finally started to get to terms to it.
She also promotes you.
She also promotes me a lot. Like, yeah, her support. Like, honestly, I would not be able to do it if her support wasn't there.
That's good. On that note, can I put you on the spot? Can you sing a little piece for us?
Hey, ato siyara sorat bhalo, ato siyara sorat bhalo, le unade Gujarat. He jane varshe to wagad bhalo. अरे रे हे मुंजो कछड़ो बारे मास हे आपना मलक मायाडू मानवी माया मेलीने वया माया मेलीने वया माया मेलीने वया जाशुमाना मेरबा हालो जाए अपना मलक माँ हालो रे हालो हालो जाए अपना मलक माँ.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
And the words because she's talking about come to our land, Abramalak, you know, it's quite very apt.
And there's only so much we can do to keep promoting it. But then it just looks like we're just promoting our own stuff constantly. But we need other people from outside to see it, to be like, can you come and do it here? But there has to be an audience for it as well. There is an audience, but that's the older generation audience. But we need to also to get that next generation as well. Because then it's gone. I mean, I'm trying to train my niece up. She's a 12-year-old, 13-year-old now. And I've started to get her into shows with me. She's got a beautiful voice, but because she's, of course, born and raised here, her thing is more towards the Western side. But I give her that platform to perform with me on stage for my annual show that I do in January. And I started off with giving her, the first song was Ladki. I said, you sing Ladki, and we'll both sing that together. But of course now her voice is matured up, so I gave her another song last year and then another song this year. But however, for the kids' mentorship that we've been doing for Navratri, I've been teaching her the Prachin Garbas, like Chapti Bhari Chokha and Ma Pavate Gadthi and those kind of ones. And it's like, these are our songs. I want you to try tapping into it. I know you're into your Western songs, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But also know that these are our songs as well. So I'm trying to somehow get them in there. But then trying, from her Western influence and from her Western coaching, how she can then implement that Western style to that. I want her to come up with that creativity rather than me saying, no, I want you to do it like this. You've now seen best of both. How are you going to merge the two together is what the challenge I want her to. And she's a fresh mind. She's a 13-year-old. So how are you going to adapt to that? How are you going to work with that? I don't want to tell you this is how you should adapt to it. But I want to see what that generation can come with. And even like working here to start making songs as well. So we've created, we're the first in the UK to create British Gujarati, strong songs. And in the beginning, our first song that we released here in the UK was in 2016. We just tried it out and thought, let's see how the audience received this. And it actually was received quite well. So, and then we did that, and then going forward every year we started releasing a song. And then there was one year that we did a song called Zabzeye, which comes from a garbo. We heard it in in Baroda, and we were like, how can we make it into, turn it into something different where people play it in the clubs, for example. And we changed the whole style around, and till date, people are actually playing that in the clubs. So it's a proud moment that a Gujarati song's now being played in a club. So we had to turn that around. And just last year before, I worked with one of my other friends, and we said, how, because there's no boundaries to a Gujarati song. We can't just say, okay, Gujarati song should only be released during Navratri time, because then it's only going to be related to, Garbas. How can we release it later on a different time to Navratri, and how can we make it sound different, where it's not about God? Let's create something different. And we did. We sat together and we put a whole theme together that, why can't we just talk about our day-to-day lives? Why can't we? Because that's what Gujarati folk is. Gujarati folk songs are about your day-to-day lives. They're talking about them being in the villages and, either doing something like some homework, or, the husband going to work and the wife telling the husband not to go to work. That's what the Gujarati folk songs are about. There's no religious connections there. So why do we have to add a religious connection here? Why can't we just talk about our day-to-day life and make it more interesting for the next generation? And that's what we worked on. And we spoke to a music producer and we added Afro beats to it. And we made it about friendship. That it doesn't have to be about love. It doesn't have to be about, the girl loves the boy and, there's a romantic connection here. Why can't it be about us as friends? This is real. We are really good friends. Let's just talk about us and us enjoying ourselves. And that's what we did. And we made a video to it. And it just, my nephew, who listens to like heavy metal stuff and trap music and, that kind of songs, who does not love Bollywood songs, who does not love Gujarati songs, he listened to that. He goes, this is my favorite Gujarati song. So we tapped into a different Gujarati there. The fact that he heard it, he goes, I love this. This is so cool. But it's like, no, Gujarati song's not just religious. It's not just, you know, about relationships and love and blah, blah, blah. It could be about anything. But it's how we can make it work. And it's about just enjoying it and adapting to it. That's all it is.